5 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world.
What happens in the world and its nations?
South Africa,
in Samarkand, Uzbekistan,
from New York for WION.
Creates ripples across oceans.
Thus, things appear to be quite tense given that the protesters are just not backing down.
The federal government employees have been protesting.
So follow the news source where facts run the show. Because you are more connected than you know. Download the WION app to find out how.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a quick look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight on Gravitas is from China. Is the country's miracle boom over? Evergrande, the so-called property giant, has been reduced to filing for bankruptcy protection. And this is just one part of how China's growth story seems to be hitting a roadblock. China's GDP growth rate has slowed down, youth unemployment standing at a record high. We discuss this and more in just a few minutes from now. Also on the show for you tonight, Ukraine will be getting F-16 fighter jets, but will they prove to be game changers in the Russia-Ukraine war? Reports say China will be installing CCTV cameras in Afghanistan. We tell you what's brewing. We also tell you how the world's biggest looters got looted. Theft at a British museum is causing ripples around the world. We also tell you about the Barbie Botox trend. It is the latest TikTok beauty obsession. Has China's growth story hit a roadblock? Is the country's economic miracle over? I'm asking these questions tonight because the country is facing a financial meltdown. Every week there is a new headline about its impediments. The economy, after all, is in the doldrums. The GDP growth rate has slowed down. National debt is nearing the IMF red line. Youth unemployment at a record high. And as if all of that was not enough, its property giants, so-called property giants, are now filing for bankruptcy protection. I'm talking about Evergrande. Earlier today, the Chinese property giant filed for cover from creditors in a US bankruptcy court. Why is that? Because it's worried that the real estate crisis back home in China might impact its fortunes. And here's what we know so far. Evergrande made the Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection filing in a New York court on Thursday. Chapter 15 protects the US assets of a foreign company while it works on restructuring its debts. Is Evergrande doing this? Yes, it is. It has been, in fact, working to negotiate its agreements with creditors after defaulting on its debt repayments. Its debts are estimated to total more than $300 billion, and this makes it the world's most heavily indebted property developer. Most of its properties back in China are on the verge of seizures. It now wants to avoid a rerun in the United States. Whatever be the case, this does not look good on China, especially at a time like this when it's dealing with a slew of disappointing economic data. And Evergrande is just one piece of that puzzle. There is so much more evidence to indicate just how the Chinese economy is falling apart. According to reports, China is likely to miss its growth target of 5% this year. The prediction has been made by several banking giants. JP Morgan Chase is one of them. It has further lowered its full-year forecast. In May, the bank had predicted a 6.4% expansion. Last week, it lowered it to a 4.8%. So did Barclays. It has cut China's GDP growth rate estimate to 4.5%. Now, for the unversed, China's official target for this year is 5%, meaning it is aiming for a 5% GDP expansion. But if we go by this wave of downgrades, it seems to be failing badly on the mission. And that's not even all. China's Great Wall of Debt is also expanding. According to a new Forbes report, China's overall debt, both in the public and the private sector, has risen to a colossal $51.9 trillion. I repeat, $51.9 trillion. This is the highest level recorded in the last 27 years, by the way. And there's more. China's debt is inching closer to the IMF's red line. Reports say China's household debt has increased from 61.9% at the end of last year to 63.5% in the second quarter of 2023. This may be a slight jump, but it has taken the debt closer to the International Monetary Fund's warning point of 65%. And next, we have unemployment. It is also at a record high. Reports say the urban employment rate for people between the ages of 16 to 24 has risen to 21.3%. And this figure is so bad that Beijing has decided to not release figures anymore. I'm not making this up. Look at what The Guardian states. China has suspended the release of youth unemployment figures. And then we come to the property sector. Reports say China is facing a housing market slump. Home prices have been falling for 16 months straight. Land sales, which account for 40% of all local government revenue, have also collapsed. I have a report with me. It says that the sales of new residential properties in China tumbled around 28% as compared to last year. And if we speak of investment in property development, which is a vital driver of both industrial and consumer demand, it sank 7.9% in the first half of the year compared to a year earlier. And analysts say this is a troubling sign of persisting weakness in the industry. What does this tell you? That China's property bubble has burst. Its mighty real estate sector is also crashing. It's not so mighty anymore. And this is worrying, by the way, because this sector accounts for around 29% of the Chinese GDP. It accounts for a quarter of domestic output, almost 80% of household assets. Around 100,000 companies operate in this very sector. And this makes it the country's second biggest employer, providing around 27 million jobs to Chinese citizens. And all of this is now under threat, courtesy the whims of one man, Xi Jinping. His draconian zero-COVID policy, his bizarre decision to limit debt to developers, his sudden purges in almost every Chinese sector, also his habit of settling scores with Chinese businessmen, they all seem to have culminated into the crisis that China is facing right now. And this is embarrassing, to say the least. 2023 was meant to be the year of China's economy, the year when its economy unshackles itself and roars back to stimulate global growth. That is clearly not happening. Meanwhile, it's a major milestone for Ukraine amid the war with Russia. The United States has approved sending F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. Just a quick backgrounder here before I go on. Ukraine has long asked for this fourth-generation warplane, aiming to get an edge over Russia's air superiority in the war. But what does this really mean for Ukraine's counteroffensive? Can the F-16s actually help Ukraine win air dominance? Will they help Kiev fend off Russian aggression? And most importantly, will this satisfy Ukraine's endless appetite for Western war machinery? We will explore all of that in just a bit. Let's first get you an update on what's happening on the ground. On Friday morning, Russia temporarily halted operations in 4 major Moscow airports following an alleged drone strike on the capital city. 7 flights were diverted because of the closures of Moscow's Vnukovo, Domodedovo, Sheremetyevo, and Zhukovsky airports. Russian air defenses shot down a drone over the capital city overnight. Debris from the drone, in fact, fell into an exhibition center, as per reports, about 5 kilometers east of the Kremlin. It caused no significant damage, but this is the 3rd time in the past month that this district of Moscow has been struck by drone debris. The Russian Defense Ministry has blamed Ukraine and called it another terrorist attack. Meanwhile, Ukraine has not commented on the incident. The war-torn country is currently carrying out its counter-offensive operation, a campaign to take back many of its territories under Moscow's control. In recent weeks, in fact, Ukraine has ramped up those attempts to target Moscow with drone strikes. In late July, the Kremlin described them as Ukraine's acts of desperation. The Kremlin says it is a result of Ukraine's failure to make significant gains in the counteroffensive. Indeed, Ukraine has suffered heavy losses in its push to dislodge Russian forces from its territory. They have lost weapons, heavy gear, vehicles, troops. And so this new development is significant. A big decision by the US that will surely give Ukraine a big firepower boost amid its counteroffensive. Ukraine will now be getting F-16 fighter jets. The state-of-the-art warplanes will be delivered to Ukraine from Denmark and the Netherlands. And Washington has assured that the transfers will go through as soon as the training of the Ukrainian pilots on these next-gen warplanes is completed. Now, this is good news for Kiev. For over a year now, They have asked for these very warplanes. But so far, the Biden administration had ruled out sending these American-made jets to Ukraine. The White House has been hesitant to approve such a request, mainly due to the fear of escalating a direct confrontation with Russia. But Ukraine kept pushing and pushing. They believe that the F-16s will be the answer to all their battle woes. Of course, F-16s provide for a high-performance weapon system. They are the most efficient and well-tested fourth-generation multi-mission fighter jets. They have sophisticated radars that can spot targets from hundreds of miles away, potentially allowing the pilots to fire weaponry while remaining at a safe distance from the target. They are deadly, highly maneuverable, and known to bring pilots home alive, and they can also be equipped with anti-ship missiles. But you see, there are limits to F-16s as well. Also doubts over how much they can actually help Ukraine. You see, F-16s are unlikely to dramatically change the course of the war. Last month, Ukraine said its pilots will complete training on them by March 2024. Since Ukraine cannot afford to take too many pilots away from the battlefield, it will probably take several months before Ukraine is actually able to use the F-16s in the war against Ukraine. U.S. officials also privately say F-16s would be of little help to Ukraine in its current counteroffensive. They might not be game changers when they eventually arrive. Also, Ukraine's counteroffensive is meeting stiff resistance from the Russian forces. Now, before the F-16s, Ukraine had been demanding Western battle tanks. They were supposed to be game changers for Ukraine. But visuals released by the Russian Defense Ministry over the past few weeks show these Western tanks and vehicles blown to smithereens. Russian forces have destroyed countless German Leopard tanks, as per reports, as well as American Bradley vehicles. Not just that, Russia has also planted landmines in much of occupied Ukrainian soil, making it dangerous and costly for the Ukrainian soldiers to attempt to take back territory on foot. And therefore, the transfer of the F-16s is a welcome development for war-weary Ukraine. It will relatively improve Ukraine's air defenses. Whether or not they prove to be game changers, we will have to wait and see. Moving on for now. Is Beijing planning to set up a surveillance network in Afghanistan? If we go by some recent reports, the answer seems to be a resounding yes. In fact, reports say the Chinese telecom giant Huawei has got approval from the top levels of the Haqqani network in Afghanistan to install the CCTV cameras. The decision was apparently taken at a recent meeting between Huawei and senior Afghan officials. Now the question is, why does the Taliban want Chinese cameras? Well, apparently to mitigate security threats, particularly from terror outfits like the Islamic State Khorasan province. Its activities, by the way, have risen in recent months. The group has been staging attacks not just against the Afghan civilians, but also against the Taliban itself. We've been telling you about this. Now, as for China, the CCTV systems could also give the country access to foreign facial recognition databases, which it can utilize for its own domestic security efforts. What sort of domestic security efforts, you ask? Countering separatist movements back home. You see, China's growing interest in Afghanistan is not just for economic purposes. It also has a security dimension to it. Ever since it returned to power, Beijing has been asking the Taliban to crack down on the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, ETIM. This is a separatist outfit in Xinjiang which allegedly has links with radical groups like the Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. And so far, Kabul has rebuffed Beijing's demands, calling the group's members activists who are staying in Afghanistan as guests. And this is where the decision to install those CCTV cameras enters. You see, there is a huge possibility that China could use these cameras for its own benefit instead of helping the Taliban. And its track record only adds to those doubts. Just have a look at Xinjiang and Tibet. They have been converted into surveillance states. They have cameras every few kilometers, cameras that scan just about everything from head to toe, and also help China, by the way, maintain a database on the activities of the dissidents. And it could do the same in Afghanistan. The timing of the announcement is equally interesting. 2 weeks back, China's highly secretive civilian spy agency launched its account on a major social media platform. And through this account, it called on all members of the society to join its fight against espionage, which basically means that civilians will now get to be spies for the country. And what's worse, China is waving this like a campaign. You know, it wants to normalize people participating in counter-espionage work, normalizing citizens informing on suspected spies. Need I say more? Why any country that sounds a security or surveillance deal with China is on a tricky terrain. My point here is simple. This deal to install the CCTV cameras in Afghanistan will benefit Beijing more than the Taliban. Let's now shift our focus to the Hunter Biden case. A Delaware judge has dismissed the misdemeanor tax charges against Hunter Biden, but reports say he is expected to face the same charges in the near future. The U.S. prosecutor, David Weiss, is expected to refile the charges as per reports, and just when President Biden thought that his son's painful legal troubles would come to an end, Hunter's plea deal has fallen apart and a special counsel has been named to take over the case. The 53-year-old is receiving increasing scrutiny as his father prepares for his 2024 re-election campaign. What's next for Hunter Biden? And will President Biden be able to shield his son? Our next report getting you the complete story.
A Delaware judge may have brought a smile to Hunter Biden's face. The judge has dismissed misdemeanor tax charges against Hunter Biden. But reports say it could be too soon to celebrate. Hunter could face the same charges in the future. Earlier, just when Hunter thought that his legal troubles were coming to an end, it turned out that the feeling of closure was premature. The plea deal unexpectedly collapsed. This led to Attorney General Merrick Garland to appoint a special counsel to continue the criminal probe. The probe into Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings, drug use, and finances could go on for months. The U.S. Justice Department has named prosecutor David Weiss in the special counsel.
I'm here today to announce the appointment of David Weiss as a special counsel, consistent with the Department of Justice regulations governing such matters. In keeping with those regulations, I have today notified the designated members of each House of Congress of the appointment. In February 2018, after being nominated by the former president and confirmed by the Senate, Mr. Weiss was sworn in as the United States Attorney for the District of Delaware.
Weiss has been investigating Hunter Biden since 2019 on low-level tax and gun charges. Now, let's rewind a bit to get you on track with what's happened so far. The investigation began in 2018. It was originally centered on Hunter Biden's finances related to business dealings. Hunter was involved in consulting work with certain Ukrainian and Chinese companies. On the sidelines, he was also addicted to drugs and alcohol. Here comes in prosecutor David Weiss, who was trying to prove that Hunter had failed to report all his income. Weiss also aimed to prove that Hunter had lied about a gun purchase and that he was a drug user. An important reminder is that David Weiss was appointed by former President Donald Trump. In June, the U.S. Justice Department charged Hunter with 2 misdemeanor tax offenses, which have now been dismissed, for failing to pay over $200,000 in income taxes in 2017 and 2018. He was also charged with a felony firearm offense. That was for making a false statement related to a gun purchase. Reports say Hunter answered no to a question on a federal form about whether he was using illicit drugs. This is in contrast to what he wrote in his own memoir. Hunter clearly stated that he was using crack cocaine that year. Before the failed plea deal, Hunter said he would plead guilty to the tax charges, which can be considered null now. He also said that he would go on to an addiction counseling program, stay clean, and not own guns. David Weiss has vowed to refile the tax charges or bring new ones. Reports say Weiss could also use his authority to levy additional charges in the case. But it is unclear how Weiss will proceed. What does the case mean for Joe Biden's 2024 campaign? A trial against Hunter Biden could cast a long shadow on Biden's re-election campaign. It could also draw away attention from Donald Trump's own legal problems. Democrats worry that Trump will try to exploit this, the same way he exploited Hillary Clinton's private email server row during the 2016 campaign. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's now shift our focus to the UK. This is the story of how the world's biggest looters got looted. A British museum, infamous for housing looted artifacts, has witnessed a staff member stealing the stolen art pieces. And reports say the worker stole jewelry and gold dating back to the 15th century BC. The pieces were not even on display. The museum says it is still trying to recover the artifacts. Let's now tell you more about what happened. The British Museum says it has a threefold mission. First, it has to recover the stolen items. Second, the museum will be carrying out research on what could be done to stop such incidents. And number 3, invest in security and collection of records in order to ensure that this does not happen again. The museum has now launched a recovery program, and officials are calling it, I'm quoting, a painstaking job involving internal and external experts. Let's just talk about the objects that have been stolen. Officials have described them as small pieces kept in a storeroom of one of the museum collections. The stolen artifacts include gold jewelry, gems, semi-precious stones, precious glass from between the 15th century BC and 19th century AD. What could sound really embarrassing is that the stolen treasures worth over $60,000 were flogged on eBay for just nearly $50. Investigators are trying to confirm if the artifacts are the exact stolen pieces. And what could be the most ironical statement, this is what a museum official has said. I'm quoting, "The British Museum has been the victim of theft." Let me repeat that, a victim of theft. Social media has been rather quick to point out the irony. You see, the British Museum is a building filled with items stolen from around the world. The ancient treasures were looted from countries during the British imperial era. And the museum acknowledges the stolen artifacts as contested objects on its website. The items include Benin bronzes that were plundered by British colonial soldiers in 1897, Parthenon sculptures which date back between 447 BC and 432 BC, and the Rosetta Stone taken from Egypt. Now, in recent years, activists have been questioning the British Museum's legacy of colonialism tied to its possession of artifacts. We are talking about artifacts taken from Africa, India, countries under British rule. The Kohinoor, for that matter. It's high time that India gets the Kohinoor back. Let me now tell you about a horrific incident that took place in the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. I have to say right at the outset that this story is disturbing. Before I go on, I want you to have a look at the visuals that we are going to be playing out. Again, let me say this is disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. Let me tell you what exactly happened. What you just saw was a man shooting at his neighbor. Let me break it down for you. The accused is Rajpal Singh Rajawat. He allegedly opened fire from his balcony. He killed 2 people and injured 6 others. You know why this happened? You know what the trigger was? An argument over pet dogs. Can you believe that? This is how things unfolded. A fight broke out between the accused, Rajpal Rajawat, and his neighbor. Their dogs fought with each other. Rajawat and his neighbor, Vimal Amcha, were walking their dogs when the 2 animals started fighting. And as per reports, this resulted in an argument between the neighbors. You know what happened next? According to reports, Rajawat ran up to his first floor home. Did he go upstairs to call someone? Did he have some emergency to deal with? No. Reports say Rajawat was seething with anger, so much so that he ran up to his house and then appeared at the balcony and fired away at his neighbor, Vimal Amcha, using a 12-bore shotgun. Rajawat works as a security guard in a private bank, and the video shows him firing a warning shot in the air, and then he aims at the street. And the result is bloodshed. 2 people killed, 6 injured. Can you believe this? An argument over whatever reason cannot be the reason to pick up a gun and fire away at someone. Have we grown this impatient, so full of vengeance and anger as human beings that we don't waste a single minute before picking up a gun and firing away after an argument? Let me now tell you about yet another incident. This one happened in Mumbai, in India. The incident was caught on CCTV camera, and it's equally disturbing. Reports say a 35-year-old woman has been arrested. You know why? She threw acid on a dog. It's unbelievable, and I wish it was not true, but this actually happened. The incident took place on Wednesday. The dog does not belong to her. It belongs to a family that stays in the same building where she stays. But why would anyone commit such a gruesome act? Why would anyone be so cruel to animals? Reports say she was upset because the dog she so mercilessly attacked had been playing with her cat, despite warning the dog's owners. The dog was playing with her cat. So she thought it was okay to throw acid on the dog. To me, this is unfathomable, being so amazingly inhuman, not knowing how to respect animals, not knowing how to respect other human beings, and not shoot at them because you had an argument. Just where are we headed as a society? Think about it. Let's now shift our focus to Canada, where a massive wildfire has prompted mass evacuations. Firefighters are racing against time to contain the advancing flames, threatening the remote northern city of Yellowknife. More than 20,000 residents have been ordered to leave their homes. Our next report telling you more.
Canada is facing its worst wildfire season as deadly wildfires threaten the northwestern regions. In Yellowknife, the capital city of the Northwest Territories, evacuation has been ordered for the entire population. Fire crews and water bombers are battling the advancing blaze. 10 evacuation planes ferried about 1,500 people out of the city on Thursday, while 22 flights are scheduled to evacuate thousands more. Hundreds of people lined up in the serpentine queues to sign up for the evacuation flights, while fires burned on either side of the only highway out of the city. Termed as the Northwest Territory's largest ever evacuation, the emptying of Yellowknife now means half the population of the near Arctic territory will soon be displaced. The massive fire to the northwest of Yellowknife has already advanced by around 1 kilometer. It is now about 15 kilometers away from the city. Authorities expect the fires to reach the outskirts of Yellowknife by the weekend. There are more than 1,000 active fires burning across Canada, including 265 in the Northwest Territories. 65% of the population here, that is around 46,000 people, are set to be evacuated. But why is Canada facing such extreme weather? Experts believe the reason to be climate change. It claimed that the drought has been contributing towards the number and intensity of this year's fires, with high temperatures worsening the situation. As the evacuation effort in Yellowknife and Northwest Territories makes progress, the focus is shifting to the western province of British Columbia, which is under the threat of dry lightning and more blazes igniting in its sun-baked forests. Here, in the city of Kelowna, a state of emergency has been declared. This city is about a 4-hour drive from Vancouver, with a population of about 150,000 people. Residents have been advised to be ready to leave their homes at a moment's notice for an extended period of time. 5,000 have already been evacuated on emergency flights as of Thursday night. But this is not the first time Canada is facing such extreme wildfire conditions. 2 months ago, the impact of wildfires was such that the smoke engulfed the skies of Canada and New York, prompting a health alert. Experts believe that the next 24 to 48 hours could be the most challenging. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
In a bid to boost saffron farming in the Kashmir Valley, the government of Jammu and Kashmir is working on a new export policy. Saffron from the valley is famous across the world, and Jammu and Kashmir is the world's second largest producer of saffron. The government says that India is looking to export the valley's world-famous saffron to more than 60 countries that are listed for the purpose. Here's a detailed report by our correspondent Idris Lone.
Saffron, also known as red gold, is one of the world's most expensive spices. Jammu and Kashmir has around 4,000 hectares under the saffron cultivation. Experts say that Kashmiri saffron is of the best quality in the international market, and with the new export policy, it will become the biggest challenge to the Iranian saffron. The Department of Agriculture says that within the next 2 months, the new export policy to give a boost to the valley's saffron growers would be implemented.
Our saffron is number one, as its constituents are of fine quality. These contents are of high quality, and that's why Kashmiri saffron got a heritage GI tag, and government has implemented several steps such as identifying more places within Kashmir where more saffron can be grown to ensure a holistic production. Saffron production has been given utmost importance.
The saffron from the valley is used by international cosmetic brands, food industry and pharmaceutical companies. It's also used in cultural and religious rituals, and after the GI tag approval, prices of Kashmiri saffron have shot up. The area under the saffron cultivation in Kashmir Valley had shrunk in the last decade. From around 5,000 hectares, it had come down to 4,000 hectares. Now, while the government is coming up with the new export policy, they're also making sure to grow saffron in every district of the Union Territory. Around 90% of the saffron is grown in the Pampur area of Pulwama district, and now the government has identified more land in various districts that is suitable for saffron farming.
Since our saffron has been given GI tag, our saffron is exported to Dubai. We have also signed an MOU with Dubai's Lulu Group. It is also exported to US, Uzbekistan and 61 other countries. This is according to each country's protocol.
The government of Jammu and Kashmir says that with the new export policy, the younger generation would be attracted towards saffron farming as it's very profitable for the returns it fetches from the export market.
After the GI tag, the government of Jammu and Kashmir is making all the efforts to take Kashmir's saffron to the world. With the new export policy, around 60 new countries have been added to the list where India would be exporting the Kashmiri saffron to. This will mean a big jump for the Kashmir saffron growers. With video journalist Feroz Idris Sloan for WION World is One.
It appears that life in plastic is unfortunately back in vogue. From face-lifting patches, lip fillers to buccal fat removal, viral beauty trends have been influencing facial plastic surgery thanks to social media setting unrealistic beauty standards achieved by increasingly questionable facial procedures. And now there is a new trend on TikTok, the latest beauty obsession inspired by the inescapable wave of Barbie core. The era of Barbie Botox. It's a viral trend, a surgery that can get you a more elongated neck, just like a Barbie doll. But we are human beings and not dolls, remember. Picture this, from the glitzy release of the Barbie movie starring Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, to the mighty influence of TikTok on beauty trends, the demand for Barbie Botox is soaring higher than the iconic doll's signature stilettos. The hashtag Barbie Botox has arrived like a storm. It's gathered a staggering 7 million views on TikTok. People are flaunting the before and after looks, showcasing the transformative power of this cosmetic treatment. It basically centers on the illusion of a slender neckline and sculpted shoulders, mirroring the iconic doll's shape. But there is more to this trend that meets the eye. First of all, what is Barbie Botox? It is a Botox in the trapezius muscles, which are the muscles in your upper back and your neck. A neuromodulator is injected, rendering a lengthier, more graceful neck and bestowing shoulders that seem chiseled to perfection. Interestingly, this sought-after treatment is often sought by gym enthusiasts and athletes who find their muscles growing a tad too much due to their rigorous routines. The Botox treatment works its magic by paralyzing the muscles, arresting their growth and movement. Even regular exercisers might notice a change in their upper body, leading them to explore this procedure. But here's a word of caution. What exactly is the Barbie Botox going to do? Getting Botox injected into the trapezius muscle can reportedly decrease spasms, relieve tension, and help with pain relief. But in terms of aesthetics, it can alter the appearance of your neck and your shoulders. But it's important to have realistic expectations. To really get that slimming effect, one needs a whole lot of this Botox, and for a long time. Soreness, weakness, bruising being just a few of the effects. The procedure also makes it difficult to raise one's shoulders. And what does a Barbie Botox treatment actually involve? Similar to other facial injectables, the minimally invasive process involves sterilizing the skin with an alcohol swab. It is followed by 3 gentle pokes on each side, and the traditional Botox lasts about 3 months. A new neuromodulator called Daxify claims to provide results for up to 6 months. But do not get carried away. Remember these words from experts. While self-expression and happiness are important, do not go blindly chasing trends. They come with potential pitfalls, because this is not the only TikTok trend that caused concern. There are others, unfortunately, out there, potentially even more dangerous. A new challenge on TikTok, by the way, has parents of teenagers worried in the UK. It involves overdosing on paracetamol. The worrying challenge is understood to have started in Southampton last week. What is this TikTok challenge all about? It appears to be where children are encouraging each other to take a higher than recommended dose of paracetamol. The goal is for people to stay in hospital for as long as possible, and the person who does wins the challenge. Can you believe that? Little is known about the teenagers who actually took part in this dangerous challenge. Over Southampton, kids as young as 15 and 17 reportedly took part in the challenge. 7 young people, as per reports, were hospitalized after they overdosed on the medicine. A statement was issued by the local authorities saying they are aware of the incident and are continuing to work across with the appropriate agencies as part of the ongoing investigations. But the community is furious. They are calling out TikTok specifically. These trends are clearly not fun. They are very real and have dangerous consequences. Remember, it's not just about asking for something, it's about understanding what can truly be achieved. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
The first vessel that used Ukraine's Black Sea corridor has crossed Turkey's Bosphorus Strait. This comes after Ukraine announced a humanitarian corridor in the Black Sea to release cargo ships that have been trapped after the termination of grain exports deal. Russian and Chinese warships conduct joint maritime patrols in the Pacific Ocean involving rescue training and drills for countering airstrikes, according to Moscow's defense ministry. India's Chandrayaan-3 mission marks another milestone as Vikram lander successfully completes its first deboosting operation to reduce first orbit. The Iranian foreign minister met the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah. The two sides are seeking to overcome hostility and boost cooperation following a China-brokered deal in March this year. U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says it is tracking a new, highly mutated lineage of the virus that causes COVID. The lineage is named BA286 and has been detected in the United States, Denmark, and Israel. Colombian police have announced they arrested an Australian national for allegedly leading a transnational organization involved in money laundering and conspiracy to commit crimes. UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay has announced an independent inquiry after neonatal nurse Lucy was convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to kill 6 others in her care. A wildfire that broke out in a mountainous national park on the Spanish island of Tenerife has now spread even further, causing damage across the island. Firefighters battled to contain the fire. It has now also forced the authorities to evacuate more than 3,000 people. FIFA's president Gianni Infantino has urged women's footballers to pick the right battles in the fight for equal pay, while placing the onus on women to enforce the change. Liverpool have completed the signing of Japan captain Wataru Endo from German club Stuttgart. It is a major relief for the Reds, who were desperate for a defensive midfielder. Endo has signed a 4-year deal with Liverpool.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. We're leaving you with Gravitas images. As always, have a good weekend. Thanks very much for watching.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean?